Remote Evil. Book 1. Chapter 2. Meeting at the Park. This audiovisual book was created by Joseph Russell Tim Pugison. While Cherry jogged to the park, he drove to the park and arrives there first much earlier. He took out his binoculars, robotic dog, and drone and proceeded to a part of the park where he knows she and him will ultimately cross paths. Then he impatiently and nervously waited for her to arrive at his spot. By using his binoculars, he soon sees Cherry arriving in the park. He immediately starts playing with his robotic dog and drone while keeping an eye for the arrival of Cherry. She soon arrives jogging fast in his spot. When she was in his range, he waves his hand to attract her attention and then musters all of his courage to try to speak to her. He shouted "Good day," as Cherry jogged by. She smiled at him and without pausing or missing a beat replied with a simple thanks. She was gone before he could again muster enough courage to speak a few more words to her. But he knew that all was not lost. Norman knows that Cherry jogs around the park several times every time she visits it. He knows that he still has several chances left to talk to her. He again carefully monitors the movement of Cherry around the park using his binoculars. When she is again about to cross his path, he puts his robotic dog directly in her path. She again crossed his path, but this time she stopped when she sees the robotic dog of Norman emulating the moves of a real dog and by barking at her. She became amused or interested with it that she stopped jogging to have a closer look at the robotic dog of Norman. But her amusement or interest in it quickly faded and she started to do some stretches to prepare herself for jogging again. She was about to start jogging again when Norman approached her. "Oh, I'm sorry that my dog got in your way," he said to Cherry. "No big deal, the dog's cute anyway," she replied to Norman, smiling. "You're Cherry, the Zumba dance instructor at the town gym, right?" Norman asked. "Yes, I am, and you are?" Cherry replied back with a question as well. "I'm Norman. I work out at the gym as well, but only sometimes," Norman replied to her. "Oh, good," Cherry said. Norman felt fear and excitement at the same time. He has never tried or talked to a woman like this way before and he was nearly jumping with joy. He was so scared that Cherry will reject him, but this did not happen. His courage grew. "I heard that you are training for a triathlon," he said to her. "Yes." "How did you know?" she suspiciously asked. "I've heard it from the other staffs at the gym," he answered. "Good luck and I hope you win," he continued while giving her his best smile. "Thanks," Cherry answered back, looking delighted at him. "Is this your dog?" she asked Norman. "Yes. It's mine. I created it myself. Do you like it?" Norman answered back. "Yes. It's cute. I like it, but," she said, then paused. "I hope you are not offended, but I like real dogs, especially small cuddly ones," she continued while gently smiling at him. "Do you have a real dog?" she further asked. Norman was caught off guard by her question that he clumsily answered, "I don't have one now, but I do plan to get a real one soon." He does not know if Cherry saw it in his face, but he felt his face turned red because he is embarrassed with himself for telling a lie to her. He never gives a damn about animals and he surely does not want any kind of pet, including a dog or a puppy. By this time Cherry is starting to believe or realize that Norman is trying to charm her. She is quite aware of the many different ways men try to meet and charm women, and Norman is not interesting to her in any way. But she pities him and as gently as she can tries to turn him down. "Well, I better get going. I can't win the triathlon just standing here and doing nothing. I need to train hard," she said this to Norman, trying her best to not to hurt his feelings. Norman quickly realized that he was losing her and out of desperation nearly shouted, "No, please don't go," to Cherry. She was a bit startled. "But why?" she replied. I want to show you something," he stammered while he nervously replied to her. "What is it?" she replied gently to him, sensing his panic. "I want to show you my drone," he said. "Your what?" she replied. My drone. He repeated. Oh okay. She replied back, taking pity on him. Norman excitedly let his drone fly and made it do some stunts. See. This is my drone. I created it myself. Norman spoke. He let go of the remote control and the drone started following him as he walked without a pattern near her. The drone also changed its motion when he moved his hands. You see. It can follow anyone. It can detect people's movements as well. He proudly spoke. Impressive. I wish my friend Dan can see this. He's in military intelligence. This could be useful for him. Cherry replied. Who's Dan? Norman asked. He's my friend and he's a major in the army. Military intelligence. She replied. In fact, I'm meeting him after I have finished doing my jogging. Maybe you could let Dan see your drone too. She continued. Norman felt jealousy and anger inside when he heard this. He wanted to shout at her, but he remembered the word friend when she referred to Dan, so he kept his composure. Sure. He said, trying to feign a smile and hiding his anger. Cherry was about to leave Norman to continue jogging when she heard someone calling her name. Cherry. Cherry. Said a loud commanding voice. Cherry and Norman looked at the direction of the call and saw a very tall muscular man. He may try to hide it in his body-hugging t-shirt and jeans, but his military cut hair and his straight posture easily reveals that he is somehow associated with the military establishment. He is ruggedly handsome and people seem to notice this as he walks by, especially the women. Norman felt nervous with him as he compared him to the many men he has seen trying to court Cherry. He physically stood out among them and that made him very nervous. Even he admits that this man is Cherry's best suitor so far. What made Norman even more nervous than before was that he noticed that this man was holding a bouquet of flowers in one hand and holding a small puppy with the other hand. The man quickly approached them and immediately kissed Cherry in the cheek. It's for you. He said to Cherry as he gave her the bouquet of flowers in his hand. Cherry kissed Dan in the cheek as well and then said you shouldn't have, while smiling at him. The puppy in his arms barked at Cherry. Hello Mr. Puddles, she said to the puppy while playfully caressing it. Norman froze. He just realized that he did not follow or stalk Cherry enough to know that she has been seeing this man whom she may be in love with. Oh, I almost forgot. This is, she paused to think of Norman's name. It's Norman. He annoyingly snapped. Oh, I'm sorry. He's Norman and he also works out in the gym. We just met here in the park, she said looking embarrassed. Glad to meet you, Norman. I'm Dan. Said Dan to Norman while smiling. Glad to meet you too. Replied Norman coldly. Norman was just showing me his drone. You could maybe want to look at it. It might help you out there in intelligence. Said Cherry to Dan. Sure. But maybe later. I've got something different planned for today and we need to go now. Said Dan to Cherry. Norman, I'm sure your drones are wonderful, but can I have a look at them later? Cherry and I need to go someplace today. I hope you understand. Dan apologetically told Norman. Sure. No worries. I was just about to go home myself anyway. Said Norman in a depressed tone. Okay then, let's go. Said Dan to Cherry. Bye Norman. See you at the gym. Said Cherry to Norman while smiling at him. The couple left Norman alone with his robot dog and drone, which was still flying by itself in the air. It nearly broke his heart when he saw the arm of Dan in Cherry's waist. Norman sat down. He felt weak. He looked around and wondered if the people around him knew or observed what has happened between him, Cherry and Dan. He felt humiliated. He hurried home and stuffed himself with so much food, drank a lot of beer and smoked a lot. He did these while watching science fiction in television non-stop for almost the entire remainder of the day. All of these made him nauseous. He was a compulsive masturbator. He has no qualms masturbating while imagining the women he fancies. He masturbated regularly, most especially when he is depressed. This makes him feel better afterwards. Today he is very depressed. He tried to masturbate but he failed. No matter what kind of stimulation he used, he was unable to masturbate. Hardcore or extreme pornography, which always worked when he is unable to masturbate, also failed him. This was the first time he went all out to charm a woman, and this is also the first time he experienced extreme humiliation while trying to court a woman. He later then cried himself to sleep. End of chapter.